Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are getting into the book of 1 Samuel, and to follow this will be 2 Samuel. So it's a 2-part series, section. Well, it's going to be more than 2 parts, but 2 books that we'll cover within this period of time here. Only got into the first 2 transcriptions, so I actually don't know what the full books will entail. I'm a little bit in the dark, but let's go ahead and start it out and see what we can learn and gather from reading the first part of Samuel. In the meantime, or to preface us, we're going to start out with a quote. Again, we're almost done with Sir Benjamin. Okay, I know we're sick of the poems ever so slightly, but sometimes they're a little fun, but almost done. Let's go ahead and read a few lines from a poem called Senex, and of course the same author here. But let us begin with, "Oh, would I could subdue the flesh, which sadly troubles me, and then perhaps I could view the flesh as though I never knew the flesh, and marry misery." Alright, so this is clearly talking about some desires of the flesh. And knowing Sir Benjamin as an author or a poet, we can most likely attribute this desire of the flesh to something sexual, right? Sensual. I feel like that would trouble Sir Benjamin, just knowing how he is as a poet and what we've read of his past. But we can also attribute the desires of the flesh to other things, right? Just really anything having to do with your physical needs as a human being, right? The needs of the body, right? It can be sexual desire a lot of the time. It can also be desire of thirst or hunger. It can also be desire of just, human needs, like having children or reproducing. So we are going to talk about 2 desires that stuck out to me the most out of this section here, part 1. It's going to be the desire of the flesh having to do with hunger, greediness in a sense. Also having to do with having children. We're going to learn about Hannah, which might ring a bell. Hannah is a character in this section here that we will soon learn about. So, yes, thinking in the back of our heads about desires of the flesh, and we'll see how this plays into this reading. Alright, let us begin with chapter 1, just to give us a little bit of context, and laying out the roles of the story here. It says, "There was a certain man from Ramathaim, a Zuphite from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite." So they're living in the hill country of Ephraim, right? This man's living in the hill country of Ephraim. So we might gather that he's coming from the tribe of Ephraim when we're thinking about the 12 tribes. But it does give the lineage, and it does come back to Ephraim anyways. So we're clear on that. Saying here he had 2 wives. One was called Hannah, and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. So it does talk about Shiloh. I hope we're familiar with the fact that they did move the tabernacle of the Lord, the Ark of the Covenant Lord, in Shiloh. So people went to Shiloh to worship. I think we talked about that very briefly. Then it also introduces Eli. Eli is the priest over in that region. And I did look up just to see. I think it's believed that he was a descendant of Aaron, but it's not 100% certain. It's not directly from the Bible, but we can maybe assume that there is the lineage there. And then Eli, of course, has his 2 sons, which we'll learn about, Hophni and Phinehas, right? Okay, so let's continue. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. So, yes, there's a sad thing that she is currently barren, right? But we do know that the husband Elkanah was very compassionate towards her, had utmost sympathy towards her, and treated her with much love. And he loves her very, very much, even though that she cannot produce children. So that's a blessing. They did have some children with his other wife, right? It says, because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Okay, so here we have a little bit of desire of the flesh or undesire of the flesh. Sometimes we have our emotions take a hold of us, right? And it actually can make the desires of the flesh go away, right? So you ever notice when you're sad, you might feel a little off, or you're nervous, you don't feel like eating. This is what was going on with Hannah, except for she was extremely anxiety-ridden due to the fact that she cannot have children, and the fact that she had this rival provoking her, making her feel even worse about that. So it doesn't say who the rival is. Some speculations are saying that it might be the other wife, Peninnah, but it doesn't seem like that's quite obvious to me. I mean, I don't really see, like, if you're in a relationship, I can see that maybe there would be some rivalship between wives, especially if one was barren and one was not. So that's why people are speculating, oh, it's the two wives that are the rivals. But there was no, I feel like they would say that, right? They would say, oh, yes, Peninnah was the one being wicked towards her. But they didn't say that. So in this sense, I think the rival would just be, could be anybody. We'll just say it's anybody. We know it's not the husband, because the husband loves Hannah no matter what. We're not sure that it's Peninnah, but there's potential that it could be. But it could be even just people of the community outside, even the rival could even be the enemy, right? Or the devil, or somebody putting dark thoughts into her head, making her feel less than. It could very well mean also depression, right? Anxiety, a lot of these emotions that we can attribute to dark or negative energy. So of course those can arise from kind of like spiritual interference as well. So again, the rival is not named, but there's a few different theories as to what that could be. And since she's not eating, it could very well just mean mental illness or something of that nature. So let's continue here. So she, in the meantime, I didn't put this in here, but she's going to the tabernacle, to Shiloh, to pray. She's praying and praying and praying, and I think Eli is looking upon her. He's watching her pray. Her lips are moving very fast. He thinks she's drunk, or he thinks she's ill in some manner, right? So Eli's, kind of asking her, is like, why are you drinking? Go home. Even though she's just praying and, being a little bit frantic, maybe because she's not eating. But let's go ahead and get into it. He's saying, or she says, in response to Eli's judgment, she says, do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. So Eli hears her out, and he answers, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked him. So Eli understands, he hears her, he understands that she is very much grief-stricken, and he, asks God to go ahead and grant her desire, right? It's really a desire of the flesh that she's having, but it seems like she has sacrificed some other desires of the flesh in her grief. So, in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. Then she goes on to say, I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. for his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there. So I think it's just Eli at the end of this is kind of saying what Hannah was saying. She was saying this to Eli. It's kind of cut off here, but she was saying this to Eli. I'm giving Samuel to worship to the Lord. He's going to serve in the temple. So she's basically pledging him to the Lord, right? And to be under Eli and to worship the Lord. And Eli was very grateful for that, because we'll come to know that his sons may or may not have been the most helpful to him. They're a little bit of troublemakers, to say the very least. But Eli was very grateful for Hannah's pledge, right? He has somebody that he can coach and bring up in the church. So let's go ahead and continue here. Hannah actually says a long prayer in the beginning of chapter 2 here, but I'm only going to read 2 short lines. Then Hannah prayed and said, "The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts." So how true does this ring, right? We have lots of ebb and flow throughout our lives. There's times of poverty, there's times of wealth, and he humbles and he exalts, right? We might feel sad or we might feel confident. There's a lot of ebb and flow, and we can attribute that to the Lord, right? Everything needs to be in balance, right? So we can appreciate things when they come. Then it says here, then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. So they went back, the family went back. Eli stays. We attribute that he's grown just a bit so he can stay. And it says here, like I spoke, Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. The sin of the young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. All right. So this we don't really talk about too much, but I'll let you know what the sons of Eli were doing. Essentially, when they were taking the sacrifices or they were taking the offerings, they would demand the meat to be a certain way. They would sometimes take choice cuts of meat or meat in excess. I say meat, but that's essentially what it is, offerings, right? They would take the offerings in excess. They would demand it from people. They were just being very, very greedy in the way that they would accept the offerings. They weren't taking them on behalf of the Lord. They were taking them on behalf of themselves and their greed and doing whatever they wanted with the offerings. They were not being pious in the reception of the offering. So that was a great sin in the eyes of the Lord. They were being very just, not good. But anyways, now a man of God came to Eli and said to him, "This is what the Lord says. Did I not clearly reveal myself to you, to your ancestors' family, when they were in Egypt under Pharaoh?" So this man of God, it says he's a man of God, comes to Eli, and after the boys are going through all this trouble, we finally have this person step in, and he essentially prophesizes to Eli and says what's going to happen to his family, to his sons, right? He basically predicts that his 2 sons are going to die on the same day. He speaks a lot of warning into Eli and just telling him, like, this is going to happen because of all of the things that your family has been doing, right? So we're getting a little bit of a prophecy that's in great detail, and it does strike some fear into Eli. So I didn't put the whole thing, but if you want to read it, you can. Just gave you the brief snippet there. Then it says here, the boy Samuel, right, Hannah's son, ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. So we assume that Samuel at this age is young, right? Young enough to not be getting into the text or reading or writing. But the Lord actually reveals himself to Samuel in this moment without Samuel knowing. So we've heard of this story. The Lord calls Samuel, Samuel, and he wakes up out of bed and goes into Eli's chamber, right? And says, "Did you call me? What's going on?" He's like, no, go back to sleep. I did not call you. And then we hear again, Samuel, Samuel. And he goes and sees Eli again. And he's like, I didn't call you, go back to bed. And so, yes, third time, I'll speak about this now. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel said, speak, for your servant is listening. So eventually, Eli had caught on that the Lord was calling Samuel, and he told Samuel to go ahead and answer to the Lord. He's like, this is the Lord. Go ahead and answer next time he calls. So that's what he does. He says, speak, for your servant is listening. And God goes ahead and tells Samuel essentially the things that are going to happen to Eli's family and line. Another warning, not as much as in detail as the man of God that spoke to Eli originally, but it was confirmation and to almost prepare Samuel for what was to come as well. So there was a lot of things that were going to happen that the Lord needed to brief him on. And they were in regard to Eli and his family, but let's see if I can just... One line here is, therefore I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering. So, again, just really a big warning on Eli's family. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them. So it seems like kind of a large punishment, right? You can't help but think, is that it, right? But, yes. Let's go ahead and finish this here. It says, Eli's asking, what was it he said to you? Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you. So he's being a little bit threatening in getting Samuel to go ahead and reveal what the Lord was saying. But Samuel did respect him, so Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, he is the Lord, let him do what is good in his eyes. Okay, so Eli is accepting of his fate or punishment, right? His family's punishment for his lack of maintenance of his children. Lack of maintenance, and I will add in here, Eli is pretty old, even at this time. Eventually he loses his vision, if it's not already done. I think his vision is failing at this time, but he's very old, right? And I think there was a lot of grief for him not raising his boys to be good leaders, right? Good priests. They were just the opposite, right? They were very cruel and rude, so there was a lot of grief with him for not bringing up his people, but he has Samuel, right? Samuel was taught the right way most of the time, right? For the short time that they had. But we'll go ahead and learn what the outcome of that is. Anyways, it says, the Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. So because of this connection that they had, right, the Lord and Samuel, the Lord looked after Samuel, he protected Samuel, and he even gave power to Samuel's words. So, everything Samuel said went. None of his words fell to the ground. So what a blessing is that, right? To be listened to be respected, and yes, that is the greatest. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. This is really all I have to say about this one. The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up. Very, very comforting. And we're going to learn what will come after that. It just does get me so excited to go ahead and continue. And I do have one more section that I had written out, so we're going to read that tomorrow. And we're going to get into everything else a bit later. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for reading about Samuel and the first portion. And let us say goodbye. Goodbye. Have a good